The next level is racial propaganda. They don't want us to know our true history. If we knew how powerful we were in the past, the more difficult it is for the elite to control a civilization. Now, if you're new to this, you might think that this is complete BS. I'd keep an open mind, as there are many clues that hint to a history that has been entirely rewritten. So one of the many things that we can do is to take a look at some older manuscripts. This here is a map from, let's see, 1450, and we've used this map on other Tartarian videos and stuff because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here that doesn't seem to go with the official narrative. We've brought up that there's a lot of big towers and architecture in Asia, in Tartary is on here as well. But what's interesting about this map is, well, first of all, it's upside down, so that's a little confusing. But there seems to be, or the majority of civilization is in the east, opposed to like here in Rome. There really isn't that much going on, or the buildings are much smaller. So what's going on with that? But the big point of this is, let's take a look at Africa. So if we move up to Africa, it's the same deal. We're seeing all these ginormous buildings, and seems like here's Egypt, right? But the point is that where are all these castles? And there are many maps, from 500, 600 years ago that are depicting Africa as being much more populated than we're told. So, yeah, and if you look over here, what are these big towers? Castles. So, I want to give a shout out to Autodidactic and Martin Liedtke. They really kind of put the stepping stones to really understanding a lot of this stuff, so go check them out. They have a lot of these books and links, and they kind of give their own opinions. But what we have right here is an illustration of some, what seems to be some Moorish figures that are dressed in some very interesting clothing. And see, here it goes, Africa. So this is an African. This is what the Africans looked like 500 years ago. And there were dragons. And this is not the only book that depicts dragons and other strange creatures in this area. This is really strange, not only for the costumes, but it seems that they're depicting massive cities that just doesn't really go with the timeline. And so there's really a lot to look at, but let's just look at a couple. This is Constantinople right here. Let's see. Look at this. Look at these towers, domes. This looks like, honestly, something kind of futuristic. Let's see. This one's called Ormus. That's kind of weird. And again, big cities and skyscraper type buildings. But what's more interesting is that they have some African cities on here. Morocco. Okay. Let's click on this. And just massive cities in almost every single one of these. Here are some Moorish looking people and this medieval castle, big city that seems to be in the background, and all these ships. It's interesting because many of these show depictions of kind of like natives, or they have some very basic gear, but then in the background, these big cities. So, what's going on? This is a really interesting one, Arzilla. And many of these books show Africa with star forts on them, cities that have walls all the way around them. This one's not obviously a star fort, but you're going to see more that makes it much more clear. And then if you look over here, it looks like that there's these two towers, whether there's some kind of etherical technology or energy producing towers, but this seems a little bit at a place outside of the city. Wonder what they're for. And then you have this thing on top of the cliff, maybe some ritual, ceremonial. And I wasn't sure exactly what these cities were, but I found another website that had a different map, slightly different. And basically, these are views of the 5 northern and western African coastal towns on one sheet. And supposedly they're from the 16th century. But again, that they want us to think, I mean, like, what's going on here? I mean, what do you mean? And then there's a star fort all around it? That's not right. Something does not line up with that story. And it's multiple cities. This is something that was already there until the Catholics came and tried to convert these people, or whoever was left, into Christianity. Okay, so let's look at some more African cities from the 1500s. And this is more in the Mediterranean, so these are the islands near Africa. But again, you have star fort cities, entire cities that are barricaded, basically. So yeah, this is on Gallica, and if you try to find another version of this map, these are old depictions of the Mediterranean islands. So were they just, in the 1500s, were they just sailing everywhere and just creating these massive medieval-looking cities? And they did this all in, like, I mean, how long did it take to do this? So if we look at, stuff like this and some of the older maps, it's very clear that these are just leftovers of a prior civilization. Okay, so here's another old book kind of depicting Egypt and Africa from a couple hundred years ago. So let's just go ahead and open it up. This is what they're depicting Alexandria to look like. Okay, so there's a lot of things to take from this. One, there's basically, this is a star fort. This is a huge barricaded city, and it looks pretty massive. Nothing to freak out about, I guess, but still very interesting. These buildings do look a little advanced for this time, but, and look at the canals, everything that's kind of going through the city, but, nothing too suspicious. And here's a depiction of Cairo. So, looks massive. You see the Nile, and what I find really interesting is all these pyramids, because there are many different kind of engravings and old depictions of Egypt that have all these extra pyramids that we don't really know about today, or were they just adding those for artistic, aesthetic or whatever, or whether these monuments actually here and they no longer exist. It really makes you question, like, why would artists even depict the pyramids this way? Autodidactic was mentioning that a lot of these pyramids kind of have an Ethiopian type. They're more vertical shape. So, what's going on here? Were there more of these types of pyramids in Cairo and they were taken down? They were removed somehow? And what's this head? What's that all about? Here's the Sphinx, and so, this could just be artistic representation, but still, why are they drawing domes? Why are they drawing skyscrapers in the back? This doesn't make sense. They shouldn't have these type of buildings during this time, and definitely not in Egypt. It's also interesting that this book depicts datura, which is one of the most powerful psychedelic plants that is said in many shamanic traditions to unlock the human potential and to contribute to altered states of consciousness. And maybe the society that was here at this time took use of this plant in many of their magical rituals and ceremonies. So just kind of weird that they're depicting it here. There's also many depictions of tropical type landscapes. And if this is from 400 years ago, this is supposed to be desert. So there's a lot of trees, plants, and weird creatures. And here's Morocco, another depiction of Morocco. Big cities, different book, and still there's these skyscrapers and big towers that they shouldn't be there. So why are there multiple books showing the same thing? And here's another book that talks about Malta and depicts it again with stuff that doesn't or really shouldn't be there. So let's see if we can zoom in. Okay, so if you zoom in, you can see that there's actually these cities that are entire star forts, and there's multiple of them. So again, another book, completely different, another map depicting basically castles, different cities in Africa, but specifically star fort cities. It's taken a sec to load, so I might have to make some cuts, but here's the next page, and we see some Phoenician heraldry and a massive star fort city. So, and this guy has a box. Looks like they're bringing something to Malta. So, and it's very interesting because the next page, it's as if they're like trying to extract some kind of old ruins or. So this depiction is what seems to be an underground temple or huge architecture, but they're underground and they're trying to extract what's in here. Let's see if we can zoom. So first of all, I mean, this entire place looks kind of in ruins. I mean, it's been damaged, and you can see there's sun coming through here. So they're trying to either use this, or it's like they're repurposing this area to maybe survive. Looks like there's some fires going on. Maybe they're burning things. They're trying to get rid of stuff. But overall, it does not look like the people who are here, right? These people have come, and maybe these guys are the survivors. It does not look like these people are the ones who built this. So who built it? Well, it's the same thing with all these books. It doesn't seem like the Christians or the Catholics who are coming to convert these people built any of this stuff. It was already there.